My son disowned me after my accident. His face was priceless when I canceled his monthly payments Reddit story. My name is Linda. I'm a 56-year-old woman living in the United States, and I learned the hard way that if you teach a child money grows on mom, they'll cut down the tree the moment it stops producing. My husband died when our only child, Jason, was 12. A heart attack at 45, sudden and brutal. Overnight, I became a single mom and a widow, sitting in a house full of his tools and half-finished projects. Luckily, he'd always been cautious with money. He had a decent life insurance policy, some retirement savings, a paid-off mortgage. I work as a nurse, so my income covered the basics. That extra money became for Jason's future. I told myself I'd make sure he never had to struggle the way we had when we were young. When he was a teenager, anytime he wanted something big, new phone, camp, sports trips, I dipped into that money. Your father would have wanted this, I'd think. I never made him work for extras like I had. Part of it was guilt. Part of it was wanting to be the good parent after he'd already lost one. In high school, Jason was bright but lazy. He coasted through classes, charming teachers when he forgot assignments. I begged him to get a part-time job. He always had an excuse. I need to focus on my grades. My coach said work would interfere with practice. My friends don't have jobs, why should I? When he got into a state university, I cried with pride. I paid his tuition from the life insurance money and set up a monthly transfer to his account for living expenses. Don't worry about working your first year, I said. Just get settled. He never did get a job. Not freshman year, not sophomore, not junior. Anytime I hinted at it, he'd remind me, Dad wanted me to focus on school, remember? By senior year, the monthly allowance had become normal. I paid his share of the rent in a house with friends, his utilities, his car insurance, his credit card when he accidentally maxed it, every surprise fee the school threw at us. Graduation came. He walked across the stage in his gown, tossed his cap, took photos for Instagram. Then he moved back home, just for a few months, to job hunt. Those few months turned into a year of him, sleeping till noon, sending out the occasional half-hearted application, playing video games until 3 a.m. Every time I pushed, he had a new reason. The job market is terrible. I'm waiting to hear back from this one startup. Why rush into something I'll hate? Meanwhile, I was still paying his car note, his insurance, his streaming subscriptions, and giving him a little spending money so he could go out with friends. If this sounds like I raised a spoiled child, you're right. I did. That's on me. Eventually, he landed an entry-level sales job 2 hours away. I helped him get an apartment, paid the deposit and first month's rent, co-signed the lease, bought him furniture. I promise, he said, hugging me. I'll take it from here. He did not, in fact, take it from there. Within 6 months, the calls started. Mom, I'm a bit short this month. Can you spot me rent? Commission checks are slower than I thought. Mom, my car needs repairs. I can't get to work if I don't fix it. Mom, my buddies are going on a trip. I already said yes. I can pay you back in a couple months. I could have said no. I should have said no. Instead, every time, I told myself, once he's more stable, he'll stand on his own. I set up a recurring transfer, $600 on the first of every month, labeled help. When I complained to my friends, they'd say, you're too good to him. But they also know grief makes you overcompensate. I didn't have a husband anymore. At least I had a son. Then, 2 years ago, my life flipped again. Driving home from a night shift in the rain, a drunk driver ran a red light and T-thabbed my car. I woke up in the hospital with 3 broken ribs, a shattered left leg, nerve damage in my right hand. Suddenly, I was the one who couldn't work. Recovery was long and ugly. I spent months in physical therapy, 3 weeks learning how to walk with a cane. More time with pain than I ever want to remember. I burned through my sick days, then my savings. The life insurance money I'd been so careful with went to hospital bills and a new, used car that I could actually get into. During that time, Jason visited twice. The first time, 3 days after the accident, he hung around for an hour and complained about the hospital smell. The second time, a few weeks later, he brought flowers, posted a selfie with my cast on social media with the caption, "Taking care of mom," then left after 20 minutes because traffic was going to be bad. On the phone, he sounded increasingly annoyed whenever I mentioned bills. What do you mean you might have to sell the house? He asked once. I mean the mortgage isn't paid off anymore, I said. We refinanced after you were born, remember? If I can't get back to work soon, I may not be able to afford to live here. You're overreacting, he said. You always land on your feet. What he didn't ask was, do you still have money to send me? The kicker came last spring. I called him to talk about maybe adjusting the monthly transfer, just until I got back on my feet. Tyler, honey, we need to look at your budget, I said. I may need to reduce what I send you. I'm only getting partial disability for a while. He sighed loudly into the phone. Oh boy. Here we go, he said. I knew this was coming. Look, Mom, I'm trying to build my life too. I can't keep being dragged back into your problems. Dragged back? I repeated, stunned. I've been sending you money every month for 5 years. Yeah, and that was great, he said. But that was your choice. You're the parent. My friends' parents helped them too. It's not like I asked you to get in a car accident. Something in me twisted. So what are you saying? I asked. I'm saying I can't be your backup plan, he replied. Honestly, it's stressing me out thinking I might have to take care of you. I'm only 27. I didn't sign up to be your nurse. I'm not asking you to be my nurse, I said quietly. I was asking you to understand that I can't keep funding your lifestyle while I'm trying not to lose my house. He went silent for a moment. Then, in a voice colder than I'd ever heard from my own child, he said, You know what? Maybe it's better if we just take a break. From all this drama, I need to focus on myself. I'm done feeling guilty for wanting my own life. Are you disowning me? I asked, half joking, half hoping he'd laugh it off. If that's what you want to call it, he said. I just can't do this mother-son guilt thing anymore. I'll call you when things are less crazy. He didn't call. Weeks passed. Then months. No texts on my birthday. No check-ins after surgeries. When my sister mentioned she'd run into him at a brewery, he'd told her, Mom needs to move on and stop depending on me. I'm not her retirement plan. Hearing that hurt more than any broken bone. But there was one thing he'd conveniently forgotten in his dramatic declaration of independence. The recurring $600 transfer I'd been sending every month. Turns out, being disowned works both ways. For a while, I kept the payments going out of habit and, I'll admit, hope. Some part of me believed he'd cool down, apologize, say he'd been overwhelmed and didn't mean it. I didn't want my first move after my son essentially cut me off to be cutting him off in return. It felt petty. Then my mailbox started filling with reminders of reality. Past due notices for my utilities. A property tax bill I'd forgotten was coming. A statement from my disability insurer, re-evaluating my claim. Meanwhile, family members would casually mention seeing Jason on weekend trips, at music festivals, hosting new sneaker hauls on Instagram, all funded in part by the invisible bank of Mom, who apparently didn't exist unless she was swiping her card. One night, after a particularly humiliating call with the electric company about a payment plan, I opened my banking app and scrolled through my statements. Month after month, AHA transfer, J. Parker, $600. My thumb hovered over the Manage Recurring Payments button. For a second, guilt flared. He's used to it, the coddling part of my brain argued. If you cancel it now, it'll be a shock. Then another voice, quieter but stronger, said, Good, maybe he needs a shock. I clicked cancel. A little box popped up. Are you sure you want to stop this recurring payment? I hit yes so hard I nearly cracked my screen. The first month with no transfer, I braced for a call. None came. The second month, my sister texted me. Did you and Jason have a fight? He was complaining about suddenly being broke. I replied, He told me he was done. I'm just honoring his independence. Finally, in the third month, my phone rang. Jason's number. I stared at it for a moment before answering. Hello? Mom, he said, sounding half annoyed, half panicked. My rent just bounced. Did your bank mess something up? I didn't get the transfer. Hi, Jason, I said calmly. Nice to hear your voice. He exhaled sharply. Come on, he said. This isn't funny. I've got bills. I've got plans this weekend. I need that money. That money, I said slowly, was never guaranteed. It was help, a gift, from a mother you told people you were done with after her accident because you didn't want the stress. He went quiet. I didn't mean it like that, he said. You know I was upset. You meant it enough to disappear for months, I said. No birthday call, no, how's your leg, nothing. But the second the money stops, you remember my number. That's not fair, he said. I've been dealing with a lot. So have I replied. Broken bones, surgery, fighting to keep a roof over my head without being able to work. Funny thing is, I still managed to think about you. He tried a different tack. Look, can we just reset? He said. Turn the payments back on for a while. I'll visit more, I promise. Once I get caught up, we can talk about cutting them down. There it was. Not remorse, but negotiation. I'm not an ATM you put attention into and cash comes out, I said. You told me you were done being my son when I needed you emotionally. I'm simply accepting that and adjusting accordingly. Grown men pay their own rent. He got defensive. Everyone I know gets help from their parents, he snapped. You're the only one acting like cutting me off is some moral lesson. It's just money. If it's just money, you won't miss it, I said. But based on your bounced rent, it seems you do. Wow, he said. So you're just abandoning me. The irony nearly made me laugh. I'm not abandoning you, I said. My door is open if you want to have a real relationship that isn't based on direct deposits. But I'm done paying for someone who sees me as a burden. He didn't like that. You know what? He said. Fine. Don't be surprised if you end up in some crappy nursing home because you pushed away the only kid you have. That would require me to have pushed you away, I said. You walked yourself out. I just stopped funding your stroll. He hung up. I cried after that call, not because I regretted my decision, but because it hurt to hear my own child talk to me like a debt collector instead of a parent. But a funny thing happened over the next 6 months. Without that $600 drain, my finances stabilized. I caught up on bills. I didn't have to choose between my medication and my power bill. I even managed to start a small emergency fund. Meanwhile, Jason's life got harder. Not because I wished it on him, but because he'd built his world like a house of cards on money I'd always said was temporary. I heard through the grapevine he had to pick up extra shifts. He moved into a cheaper apartment with roommates, sold his car, and started using the bus. At first, he told relatives I'd suddenly turned on him. My sister set him straight. She almost lost her house while you were buying concert tickets, she apparently told him. Maybe be embarrassed instead of angry. About a year after the cancellation, he knocked on my front door. No text first, just him on my porch, hands jammed in his pockets. I opened the door halfway. "Hey," he said, "can we talk?" I let him in. He looked different. Less polished, more tired. But there was something like humility in his posture I'd never seen. We sat at the kitchen table where I'd balanced so many budgets trying to keep both of us afloat. "I was mad at you," he started, "for cutting me off. I thought you were punishing me." "I was protecting myself," I said. "And maybe teaching you a lesson I should have taught when you were 16. He nodded. "I know that now," he said. "At first, I blamed you for everything. My bills, my landlord yelling at me, not being able to go out with friends. But working 2 jobs and still barely scraping by, I realized how much you'd been doing all those years." He looked up, eyes glossy. "I'm sorry I made you feel like a burden when you had your accident," he said. "I was scared. The idea that I might have to take care of you someday freaked me out." I lashed out. It was selfish and ugly. I stayed quiet, letting him talk. "I don't expect you to turn the money back on," he added quickly. "I've adjusted. I have a budget now. I'm not in a great place, but I'm standing on my own feet. I miss my mom. Not the bank, the person." That line cracked the wall around my heart a little. "I miss my son," I admitted. "Not the entitled adult, the kid who used to bring me dandelions from the yard." We talked for a long time about boundaries, about plans for my eventual long-term care, about what a healthy relationship between an adult child and a disabled parent could look like. He offered, unprompted, "Once I'm stable, I want to help you. Not because I owe you money, but because I love you. I want you to know you can lean on me eventually. Just not yet." That meant more to me than any transfer I'd ever set up. To this day, I haven't reinstated the monthly payments. He's come to understand that if he really needs help and is honest about it, I'll consider a one-time loan. But the era of automatic, unquestioned support is over. Some people hear my story and say I was cruel, that cutting him off financially after an accident was stooping to his level, that as a parent, you're supposed to help your kid no matter what. Maybe they're right, but I know this. The moment I stopped enabling him, he started becoming the man his father and I always hoped he'd be. And the look on his face when he realized the money wasn't guaranteed, that his comfortable life depended on a relationship he'd just thrown away, wasn't just priceless because he panicked. It was priceless because it was the first step toward him finally valuing me as more than a walking wallet. So, what do you think? Was I wrong for canceling my son's monthly payments after he essentially disowned me following my accident? Should I have kept helping him because he's my child? Or was it fair to let him experience what real independence actually feels like? Tell me in the comments what you would have done.